When I hear it hit the floor, the girl jumps heaven at me. Magic, magic. Hey guys. All right. So, Adobe Illustrator Basics. So we're going to start with the Graphic Design 1 students Adobe Illustrator Practice. Fun fact, you're going to have another one next week, so make sure you get this done. We're going to go over next week's just like we did this time, so don't worry about it. Right now, we're going to go over actually kind of, I wanted to say both, and then I changed my mind. I haven't made up my mind yet, so we'll see what I end up doing. Okay, let's get to the point. So I am going to show you guys your assignment. We've already worked on some of this with you guys. Let me switch screen. Okay, there you see it. Do you see it? You see it? Cool. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hide all of the layers we've been working on so that I don't mess up everything you and I have done together in class. I'm going to make a new layer. Okay, should probably go over all of that, shouldn't I? That might be a plan. Actually, scratch that. This is what I'm going to do instead. Let's just start this thing from scratch so that when you go in to download your document from the very start, we're going to go to the start to the end. Let's do that. Okay, so the very first thing you're going to do, obviously, you're going to open Adobe Illustrator. If you don't do that, then, yeah, you're not going to be able to do this. All right, so first thing we're going to do is when we open up the new document, we're going to go over here into the Print tab. It just has presets that are good for printing. No real particular reason for this project. It's just kind of what we're doing this time. So we're going to pick letter. Again, no real particular reason. I do believe in the assignment I give you actual dimensions to use, but I don't want to find out what those are right now. And just going to do this. So if your dimensions are exactly what it says in the video here, cool. If they're exactly what it says to do in the assignment, really cool. Good job. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. Do as I say, not as I do, I guess, in this particular instance. Okay. Wow, I talked a lot just then. Let's get to the point. Okay, so because our document, we always want to make sure that we name it correctly, we're going to follow the proper naming convention that actually is on your assignment. So we're going to do first name, last name, underscore, and this is Illustrator Practice. There's actually going to be 2 of these, so this one I'm just going to say 1, Illustrator Practice 1. We're just going to work in points. You can totally choose to work in inches, or if that helps, if that makes more sense, but it's really not important for what we're doing for this particular project, so it doesn't matter. What does matter, we're going to change the orientation. The orientation is just whether the page is lined up vertically or if it's lined up horizontally, okay? And because the image we're going to move in is horizontal, let's do that one. You don't need to worry about this whole section yet, this bleed bottom, top, left, right. That's something that you're going to worry about in second year, so you don't need to worry about it yet. Advanced options, though, is something that we're going to go in and play with, so I clicked on that button and I got this extending menu. Typically, in graphic design land, we always want to work in CMYK, and the reason we always want to work in CMYK is because that is the standard color mode for print. If there's ever anything that we print, we use a CMYK, which stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Okay? RGB, just in case you're interested, those are web-based colors, so red, green, blue. All right, so we're going to make sure we stay in CMYK. Our raster effect, honestly, for this project, it doesn't matter because we're just figuring out things for the first time, but let's get in the habit of using high. All right, a high raster effect. What this is, and you'll see that there's a number. Medium has 150 ppi, screen has 72 ppi, and high has 300 ppi. What those ppis are is it is pixels per inch. So there are 300, if you can imagine, itty bitty little pixels within every single inch that it makes up your screen or makes up the print. So that means high def, baby. All right, this is kind of 72 is like your standard screen resolution, and then you got high, and then you got somewhere in the middle. typically we're going to stay with high because when we move things into another document or we print them, we don't want pixel garbage. And we're going to get that a little bit. Now, granted, we're using Illustrator, not Photoshop, so the risk of having pixel garbage is way lower. So if you guys are ever wondering, like, why don't we do all this Illustrator stuff in Photoshop instead of, like, why is the reason this seems so redundant? Well, it's because Photoshop works with raster images using a selection of pixels, where we work with vector images, which do points and anchors. So it's much more specific and detailed, okay? And we can create things from scratch better that way. Long story short, let's go ahead and hit create. All right, so here's our brand new document. Now, going into your Google Classroom assignment, all right, you're going to download that file that I gave you under Illustrator Practice. Once you have that on your desktop, you're going to go over here, down, File, and then Place. Cool. Then you got to find the document. Where the heck is it? Let's see. I don't think I actually saved the file for you. I didn't. Okay. So I'm just going to pick one of these. Don't worry about it. Actually, I'm not going to. Illustrator. I think I have a clean, unmessed up version of this. Nope, that's the next one you guys are going to see. Spoiler alert. Illustrator Practice. This is where editing videos comes in handy. Dude, I can't even find it. We're just going to use this one. We're just going to use this one and I'm going to edit it like I just did before. There's already a file open. Yeah, sure. Just do that. Okay, so you see now the picture of the image that I want to move in, it's attached to my mouse. Boop, 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 boop. Cool. And all I'm going to do is line it up with the corner, click, hold down my mouse, and drag it across. Yay! And then once you do that, like it's there. If it really bothers you that it does not match up with the artboard, you can change the artboard. The artboard is this white looking piece of paper that's underneath, and you can change that. You can add multiple artboards, you can resize it. If we decide that we don't want it to be horizontal anymore, we want it to be vertical, we can change everything. It's kind of cool. Artboard tool is down here on the left-hand side. All right, so artboard tool, I just click that, and then look, I can go in and I can just edit that and crop it to size. Okay, super not important. You don't need to do that. But if it bothers you and you're a little OCD like I am, you can do that. All right. The only thing is you got to make sure when you're done adjusting that you go up here to where it says edit. If you do not do that, you're just going to end up making another artboard and another artboard and another artboard. Okay, so you got to hit exit. Cool. All right, now let's take a minute to talk about layers. Okay, I have layers set up in this panel, but if you don't have your layers out, you can always go up here to Window, and you can select Layers. All right, so we got some tools, some extensions, things up here, and then after this line, everything's in alphabetical order. So most of the things are. So you click Layers, and then it'll pop up like that, or it'll pop up like this. All these windows you can move and toggle based on where you want them to go. I can even put it in this little section. I can put it in this little section. I can move it so it just hangs in the middle. I can pop it into here. I can do whatever I want to do with it and customize this so that the workflow is to my liking. Okay? Now let's talk about the different things that you can do in the layers panel. Man, I wish I had that like zoom feature where I could like zoom in with the camera. If you guys know how I can do that, that would be cool. Settings, hotkeys, audio, video. Nope, that's not it. I'll have to figure that out for the next video. But for right now, hopefully this is good enough. I hope. And maybe I'll figure it out later. Because yeah, I don't know how to do that right now. Okay, anyway, long story short, let's get to the point. If I go to layers, okay, right here you will see an eyeball. That eyeball is the view or hide, okay? So I can turn it off and on and off and on and off and on, and that will hide what is in this layer from sight or make it visible. That is your visibility toggle. This empty spot right here is actually for lock, all right? So you can lock any of the things within this section so that you don't end up messing them up when you don't plan on or intend on messing things up, okay? All right, so I'm gonna unlock that because I still might wanna make changes. Nah, I don't, I'm gonna lock it. All right, next up, you'll see a color. What that color is right here is when you select it, see, that's the color that shows up. Okay, it's just a way for you to be able to tell what layer you're on when you've got like 50 layers going on. All right, so I'm gonna lock. This little arrow here is a drop down, so you can see everything that lives in that layer. If you imagine each layer like a book, this is like the cover of the book. And then if you go to the drop down, these are like the pages in that book, like underneath the cover. All right, the very next thing is there's this little circle majigger, and you can click it. I don't really understand how to work it. You can move the appearance of it top to bottom, but next to that section is just an empty space. This empty space is actually really important. If you click this empty space, and it's not doing it because I have it locked because I'm a dork. If you click this empty space, it selects the object and the layer. Okay, if I want to just select the object itself, then I would click here. Imagine I have like 50 things in here, and it would select just the one and then the book that it's in, if you can kind of imagine the difference there. Maybe I'll show you an example later. All right, since this is just a picture, I can't edit everything. It's just a picture. All right. I'm going to go back to the one that was kind of like edited and had cool stuff in it so I can show you that one. All right, so let's go ahead and let's start making some changes. What I want to do here is I am going to, let's see, notice how I hid these layers and I got a new layer. All right, so how do we make a new layer? To make a new layer, you're going to go to the very bottom of the layer panel. You'll see you have a couple options. It tells you how many layers you have. You got sub-layers there. Oh, sorry, collect for export, locate an object, make or release a clipping mask, create a sub-layer, and this one right over here, create new layer. So if I click that, you'll notice instead of 4 layers, I now have 5. If I want to get rid of a layer, I just go to this trash can here on the very bottom and delete it. Okay, now I have 4 layers again. All right, so this one is going to be my workable layer. And how I renamed it is I just double click on the word and then it'll let me change whatever the name of that is. All right, got to make sure that this layer is highlighted. So I'm just going to click on it and now you see I have a blue highlight across it so that I can make changes to that layer. If I don't click that and I click, like, let's say the reference image, it's not going to let me do anything, okay? It's not going to let me make circles or triangles or anything. See how I have my brush icon selected, but I have like a pencil with a circle and a line across it? It's like you can't edit this page, and that's because I locked it, okay? I protected it. So I'm going to make sure I click on the proper layer that I want to make changes to. Now you'll notice I got a brush tool. It's just magically there because this one's not protected. All right, so let's zoom in on number 1. Oopsie. To move my screen around, by the way, if you're wondering how I'm doing that, to zoom in and out, I'm using, let's see, to center, let's rewind. To center everything in the center of my page, I am hitting Control and 0. If you are on a Mac, Command 0. That'll snap everything right into your frame. Now to zoom in, I'm hitting Control plus or minus to zoom it out. Okay, again, with a Mac, everything is Command and not Control. So in, plus, out, minus. Okay, and 0, snap. Always with Command held in there at the same time. All right, so let's zoom in. Now, to drag the screen, you'll see that I have a little hand. Hello, hi, I'm waving. How I'm getting that hand, this is, I think it's called a drag tool. I'm pushing my space bar, and then I'm clicking, holding, and dragging to move these things across my page. All right, so number 1, what we need to do is make a square box, color fill, 6-point stroke, and square the corners. All right, well, the corners usually come square. So here we have a rectangle tool. Now, keep in mind, see how there is this itty-bitty little triangle? Itty-bitty. If I right click on this tool, I get a drop-down menu with more options. Okay, if you do not see as many options as I have, you might want to go into your advanced toolbar settings. So you might want to go to Window, and you, because I have an older version, you will have a version that doesn't say tools, it'll say toolbar or toolbars, or it'll be an additional one or something like that. And then you will have the option somewhere over here to choose advanced, okay? And that will give you the advanced options. Okay, so let's see, notice how there is a rounded rectangle and a regular rectangle. Well, we want square corners, so I'm definitely going to do the normal rectangle since it's already up there. I don't have to hit the right click button and then like select it. I can just click this one. Hotkey, I love hotkeys. Hotkeys I think make your workflow just go so much faster. Hotkeys are keys on your keyboard that you click in order to get different tools. So let's say I want to use the selection tool. See how if I hover over that, I get a V in parentheses? All right, if I click V on my keyboard, you'll notice my mouse changes to the selection tool. All right, and for the rectangle, the hotkey is M. So watch me, I'm just gonna click on my keyboard M, and it changed to the sight line for the rectangle. Kind of cool. All right, so all I'm gonna do is make a square. I'm gonna click my mouse, hold, drag my mouse, and make actually a rectangle, not a square. Okay, in order to get a square, if I click and drag and hold across, you'll see how I get like a hot pink line. That means that the height and width are exactly the same and it's now a square. Another way to do that, to take out the guesswork, maybe I know I want it this long, but I don't want to have to guess and try and find it and then accidentally miss it and then go around again because that's a pain. I can just hold down the Shift key and it snaps it to a perfect square. See how that works? Okay, oops, my screen got a little bloopy. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead, make my rectangle, and I'm just gonna use any color to fill it. So in my properties panel, which is right over here, again, if you don't have your properties panel up, you can always go to Window, find properties, and then pop it up, and then move it wherever you like it for your workflow. Over here, we have appearance, and there is a little white box that says fill, and a little outline box that says stroke. Okay, notice they are also over here, and they're also over here. All right, there's quite a few places where these live, and they jump around. So depending on where you like things, you can play with it. All I'm going to do is go to fill. Fill is going to, just like it says, fill this shape. So I'm going to fill it with hot pink. Ooh, that's a bright color. And then for the stroke, I think I want to change the stroke. I'm going to click on that little icon. And yeah, sure, why not? I'm going to make it this orange. Okay, so there's my fill and there's my stroke. Now it says to do a 6-point stroke. So there's a couple ways I can do that. There's stroke up here, and I can change the weight of it by either clicking up or down or typing in a number. Okay, or going to this drop-down menu and picking a number. I can do the exact same thing over here. I can go up or down, select a number, or type in a number. And I'm just hitting enter on my keyboard to put that number in. So there you go. We got a color fill, we got 6-point stroke, and we have square corners because we use the tool with square corners and not rounded corners. Done. Okay, next one. I'm hitting my space bar and I'm dragging so I can go to the next object. All right, so we are going to make a box with a 4mm radius on bottom. We're measuring in points here, so we're not going to know when we hit 4mm, so don't worry about it. Again, I'm going to do a rectangle, and notice how I still have this fill and stroke set. If I make a rectangle, it's going to have those same settings, so keep that in mind. Whatever you did last is going to be what it saves. So I'm just going to go in, let's see, I'm feeling in a green mood, and I don't want a stroke. So I have this little shape, and I'm just going to kind of go over it. Yeah, that's good enough. And then I'm going to hit V on my keyboard for the selection tool, so I don't have to do the tiring task of moving my mouse all the way over here and clicking it. I'm just going to hit V, and you'll see how it's highlighted. And then I'm just going to move over and use this kind of as a guide to see what I'm doing. Okay, now the selection tool, it lets us move stuff, it lets us shrink stuff, and it lets us rotate it, and it lets us like resize things in different ways. Also, fun fact, if you hold down Shift, it'll resize it, keeping its proportions exactly the same. That's a nice thing to know right there. All right, so the one right underneath the selection tool actually does something a bit different. This lets us change and manipulate the anchor points, so we can completely alter the shape of the object. So don't get those two confused. They look very similar, but they behave very differently. For this one, I'm going to use the regular selection tool. All right, so this very first one whose hotkey is V. You'll notice inside each of the corners, I have these little bullseye looking shapes. And you'll see how when I hover inside instead of here or here, my mouse changes based on what I want it to do. Right? If I angle here, it thinks I want to stretch things up and down. Same thing here. If I angle right here and I get this little curved one, it thinks I want to rotate. And if I angle in here, it turns into that little curve. All right? With this curve, I can actually click and hold and drag it, and it'll round out all those corners at the same time. But let's say I don't want it to round out all the corners at the same time. I just want it to do, like this example, just 2 of them. So what I'm going to do is click one and watch my mouse. Where that little curve is, boop, there's a little dot there now. Okay? And then in order to select multiple things, you hold down Shift. And then I'm going to click the other box. Okay? Boop, there's a little dot in there. Now I'm just going to click and drag them until where I think, yeah, that looks good. And there you go. Number 2 is complete. Okay. Next, number 3 asks for pretty much that exact same shape. You see that gray shape, same thing. So I'm going to do another shortcut, and I'm just going to copy this shape over so I don't have to make it all over again. And an easy hotkey way to do that, I mean, you could go, Control C, Control V. Lots of people know how to do that one. But to be even faster, you could hold down your Alt-Option key and just drag it over. Pretty cool. Now, if you want it to perfectly line up with the one you did before, you can hit your Alt-Option key, then click the object, then hit Shift, and then drag it over. If you don't do it in that order, it's not going to quite work. So Alt-Option, then click the object, then hit Shift, and drag it over. And then that moves it in a perfectly straight line. All right, for this one, we are going to need a star. So we're going to go to that same shape tool. I'm going to right click because I don't want a rectangle anymore. I want something different. I'm going to go down and pick the star tool. Now the star tool has some cool things about it. It does some pretty interesting stuff. If I click and hold, not releasing my mouse, I can change the angle. Again, still not releasing my mouse, I can hit the up or down key on my keyboard, and I can either lower the number of points or raise the number of points, which is kind of fun. All right, I just want a regular star, so I'm going to go back down to where I have 5, make it a little smaller so that it kind of fits this example. And then using the Pathfinder tool, notice how there is a typo. I got this on Google, I didn't make it, although I misspell things all the time. Again, notice how my cursor is still that little sight line. If I try to do anything with my cursor, all I'm going to succeed in is making another star. Okay, so what I need to do is hit my hotkey, which is V, or go on up here and select the selection tool and just move my star where I want it. Okay, now Pathfinder. Pathfinder is a pretty darn cool tool. I am going to rubber band select the 2 objects, and you'll notice over here on the right hand side, my menu has changed. This is my properties panel, and it comes up in this section with the things it thinks I most likely might want to use. Also, the top menu does that too, but you'll see Pathfinder's not up here. Oh, there's Path, but that's not the same. All right, so Pathfinder, if you see these little dots on the bottom, that means that there's more options. So I can click that and get more options. Now, maybe you weren't a lucky person and this didn't come up for you. Again, like everything else, you can always go to Window, and then just find that menu, and there you go. Okay? All right, so what we're going to do with this is we are going to knock out half of the box using this shape. So I want this to look like this. Let me first show you all of the things that Pathfinder can do, because it can do an awful lot. It can minus the back. Whatever is in front of the object that you have in the back, it will take out what overlaps in the back. Okay, so watch. Boop. Okay, took out the back object. Let's see, so another one that it can do is outline. If you select that, it'll outline the shapes. Right, the next one we can do, this one is crop. So it'll crop one object to the other object. Kind of weird. The next one over here, this one is merge. It merges the two objects together, which in my mind, it's kind of like the exact same as unite. So I'm not really sure why there's merge and unite, because it does the same thing, but whatever. Maybe they have different purposes if you get a little bit more complex. Next, this one is trim. So you can trim one to the shape of the other. See that? All right, the next one, this one is divide. This one's pretty interesting. If you click this and divide it, everything still moves as one object. And what that means is all these objects are grouped together as one object. So we have to ungroup it. And you'll notice over here in quick actions, we have something that says ungroup. So if I click that, click off of the object, click on it again, you'll see I can move all these separate pieces because I have divided them. Okay, let's see. Are they still divided? Okay, they're normal now. Okay, the next one, we have this top row. I think I did all the bottom ones. Yep. Okay, so now we have the top row. This one is click to exclude. So this takes away the parts that overlap each other. There you go. This one is intersect. So this keeps the areas where they overlap each other. This one is the one we want. And for now, I'm just going to show you this one, which is unite, which is exactly the same as merge. And this one is minus front. The reason I want to use minus front instead of this one, minus back, is only because I made my star after I made this little circle majigger, or this little rectangle thing. Okay, if I go into layers and I go drop down and see what's inside that book of my layers, I can see that the star is on top of the rectangle tool, or the rectangle weird shape thing that we made. So I know that I want to minus the front object, or the one that's on top. All right, so there you go. That's that. That was a lot of information in that one. All right, let's move over to number 4. Again, I just want to copy this object over. So the fastest, easiest way for me to do that is hold down Option or Alt and just drag it over. Pretty simple. The next thing that we're going to do with this one is it wants us to put a picture inside. Okay, picture inside the shape. In order to do that, we need to change the mode that we're in right now. Okay, we're in like a regular kind of drawing mode, but we want a drawing mode that allows us to alter the inside of our shapes. So we're going to go all the way down here onto the bottom. You'll see it is a round circle-like object with a square, filled-in square in front. This is, and if I hover over it, you can see it says drawing mode. Notice how it also has a hotkey, which is Shift plus D to change the modes. I don't like using this hotkey, but if you do, go for it. When I click here, you'll see that I'm set to draw normal. For this particular one, we're going to go to draw inside. All right, so I'm going to click draw inside. And here you see I have these little dash lines. This tells me that this object is now active for me to make changes into it. I can take my paintbrush and I can paint all inside that. Whoop! I painted with the same color, so you can't see anything. That was dumb. Paintbrush and paint inside it. There we go. Embarrassing. Okay, or in this case, I'm going to insert a picture. So I'm going to go to File. I'm moving the screen. I'm on the wrong screen. Here we go. I'm going to go to File. And I'm going to go down to where it says Place. because I'm going to place a picture inside the shape. And I'm going to pick the object I want, bunny, and I'm going to go ahead and hit place. Now you'll see it is again attached to my mouse. And I'm just going to click and drag, and there's my bunny. Now, get off of there. All right, did you see that? I accidentally had the brush thing still set, so I went over here to hit my selection tool. Now, because this is active and I can still make changes in this box, I can move him around until I like where he's positioned. And when I like where it's positioned, I'm going to go back down to the drawing modes, and I'm going to go back to draw normal. If I don't do that, I'm going to keep altering how this bunny is laid inside this shape. So I got to go back and draw normal. All right, now you'll notice that it does not shift in the shape, but I can move the shape around with it. Okay, so that's how to put an image inside an outline shape. Now there's a more advanced way to do this too, if you're interested, which we'll show you later. Okay, which is called a clipping mask. All right, next we're going to do text in a box. Now this is not to be confused with this. This says text in a box, but it really means make a text box. This one is text in a shape, which happens to be the shape of a rectangle. Okay, so I'll show you the difference. Number 5, you're going to go over to your type tool. The hotkey for that is T. And then I'm just going to click, hold, and drag. And there you go. I've got text in a box. Now, let's make it look a little bit more like the example that we had here. I'm going to take a smidgen of this, and I'm going to go over here. Notice how now I have some character settings, and I also have some up here, okay? I'm going to go here, and I'm going to make this text a little bigger so it looks more like a header. I can go in and make a new paragraph. I can also highlight this text and shrink it. Woo! What did I do? All right, I can play with it quite a bit. There we go. And I can change color. I can do kind of whatever I want with this section of stuff. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's how you put text in a box. It's pretty darn simple, and you can edit and make changes to it. And we'll get a little bit more in detail with that later on. Another cool thing you can do with text is place it on a path or any kind of line or shape that you want to make, which is kind of neat. So for this one, I'm just going to use the paintbrush. I'm just going to make just an organic little shape, okay? Whatever on earth you want that shape to be. Doesn't matter. Next, we're going to go back to the type tool, and remember, the type tool has this tiny little triangle. There we go. This has this tiny little triangle, and if I right-click, that triangle always tells me that there's more options. So if I right-click there, I'm going to select this one, Type on a Path Tool. I'm going to select that, and you'll see the icon has changed from the regular T to the little swish with the T on it. And all I need to do is hover over my shape and then click, and there you go. I can also type whatever I want to type, and it'll go along that shape. All right, based on where I start my anchor, that's going to be where the text starts. So if I want it to start at the very beginning, I got to start it at the very beginning. If I want it to be at the end, I got to start it at the end. You guys see the difference there? Okay. In order to stop the type tool, if you are liking the hotkeys, a type tool is a little annoying because if you want to just hit a hotkey and select V, it thinks you're typing the letter V. So that kind of doesn't work. All right, so for everything else, hotkeys work great, but when you're in the type tool, you got to actually click and go back to that, and you can't use a hotkey. All right, so you'll notice when I hit the selection tool, I got some new controls that popped up. I have a little handle here, and if I move this handle over, it'll shift where the text starts on my object. So maybe I didn't get it quite in the right place at the first time. Oops, sorry, I just dragged that. This one here in the middle means that I can also alter it, but I can also turn it upside down, which is kind of neat. This one can limit the amount of text that I show, so maybe I want to shorten it. But you'll notice I get this little X with a plus in it because there's still some text being hidden that's not showing, and it's a warning to tell me that some of my text is not visible. Okay, and when I make all my text visible, you'll see that little thing goes away. See, I got another one over here. Okay. And if I just delete some of this text, you can see the text that was hiding back there. Oops. Again, I did it again. Do you see that? I put a V in instead of just selecting. Okay, so that's those. Next up, number 7, we're going to place text in a circle and center the text at the top of the circle. Okay, so first of all, let's make a circle. We're going to go back to our regular tool. Notice how Star Tool is there right now. Okay, these icons do change based on what you used last. So sometimes it can be really hard to remember, like, oh shoot, where's that rectangle tool? It looked like a rectangle, but I don't see it. Is it this one? Okay, it's always going to be in the same place, but it is going to change based on what you used last. So right click, and I'm going to pick Ellipse tool. And an ellipse tool is the circle tool. It's just this is an ellipse and this is a circle. Geometry. All right. In order to get a perfect circle, just like getting a perfect square, if you hit the Shift key on your keyboard, pop, it makes a perfect circle. So it kind of takes the guesswork out of it. Takes the guesswork out of it. All right. I'm going to release when I like the way it looks. I'm going to hit V so I can move it wherever I want it to go. Since it's an outline, you guys will notice that I was trying to drag it in the center and it's not doing anything. I got to actually drag it from the object because right here I don't have a fill. Therefore, a fill doesn't exist. Now, if I give it a fill, all of a sudden I can move it from that because it recognizes that as part of the object now. Fun fact. All right, I'm going to take the fill off. Oh yeah, by the way, that means like no active color. That means transparent, see-through, no color. Okay. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to use the direct selection tool. All right. Like I said before, the selection tool lets us scale things up and down or change kind of the orientation of them. It lets us rotate stuff, which you won't be able to tell if it's rotated because it's a perfect circle. Another cool thing that it does with the circle, this little bullseye comes up and we can actually edit so that we get like a pie chart effect, which is kind of neat. Okay, but since this doesn't have that line on the bottom, I'm not going to use that aspect of this. Instead, I'm going to go to the direct select tool, which is the tool just right underneath the selection tool. Notice how it has a hotkey of A. And then this lets me affect the anchors. So what the computer understands the geometry and placement of this object are. It completely alters those. I can grab an individual anchor and completely change the shape. That almost gave me like Star Trek vibes right there. Okay. It also gives me these interesting little handles, and I can take these handles here and further alter the shape of the object. I've gone too far. Help me, save me. I just want a circle. Okay. Now, I'm just going to select this bottom one that I don't want anymore and hit delete on my keyboard. Deleted. Now I have a nice arch that I can put my text on. So again, we're going to go over to the type tool. I'm going to right click because it's just the regular type that's selected right now. Pick type on a path tool and then just line it up with the anchor. Okay, so now you'll notice that it's not perfectly centered. I'm going to go to my selection tool because I can't hit V. And then I'm just going to take this text and center it. There you go. Number 7's done. Okay, let's go to number 8. Now there's a couple different ways you can do number 8. First I'm going to show you like the advanced method, which since you're beginners might be a little frustrating. And then I'm going to show you the beginner method. Okay. So what we're going to be doing with this is we're going to draw using the pen tool. Notice how this is the pen tool right here. Hotkey is P. You'll notice how there's two that look very similar. They look like little fountain pen tips. Okay. This one right here is the regular pen tool. It gives us straight lines. Okay. This one is the curvature pen tool. It gives us curved lines. That's the difference between the two. So I'm going to start out with the pen tool, and I'm just going to click, click, click. Okay, and I get a straight line. But now that I can only do straight lines, I have a problem because this next one is a curve. whale. If I click but don't release my mouse, click, hold, and then drag my mouse or trackpad, whichever one you guys are using. You'll probably be using 2 fingers for your trackpad, holding it down, and then with your other hand, maybe like shifting the other finger. All right, and I'm just going to drag it until it's lined up, and then I'm going to release. There you go. But I have a problem now because I have a curved section and I need a straight line. Okay, in order to make the line go back to normal and go straight again, I have to just click on the anchor one more time, and now I have a straight line. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and continue with the straight line. This bump is very, very big, and if I try, I'm not going to quite succeed in making the exact shape. Okay, so going halfway through a big shape like that is actually a lot easier. I'm going to click, because it's a curve, I'm not going to release, I'm going to hold and drag my mouse and make that shape. Now, as you guys are learning this for the first time, it's going to take some finessing to get used to that. All right, and now you'll see I kind of drew myself into a corner and I can't see where I'm supposed to go next. So if I go over to opacity, over here on my appearance section of my properties panel, opacity is how see-through or not see-through something is. If something is see-through, it's called transparent. If something is opaque, it's not transparent. You cannot see through it. So you can see right now, my opacity is at 100%. I can't see through it at all. If I go to this, click this little thing, I get a slider, and I can slide this down or up, and that'll change the amount of how much I can see through the shape, or how strong or weak the opacity is. Okay, I can also just type a number in here too. All right, so now that I can see, I'm going to place my anchor, drag, get the shape I want, and now because I have a curved line, again going back to that anchor so I can get a straight line. And now an interesting thing happens. I'm about to close the form. Okay, when I close a form, watch my mouse. Right now it's a pen, and as I bring it closer, you'll see I get that little circle on the end of the pen. That is trying to tell me that I had an open form and I'm about to close it and make it a solid form, almost as if that form could hold water now. Okay, and that becomes really important later on, because if you have multiple shapes laid on top of each other, but they're not closed in form, their colors can actually leak into other shapes and just make a mess, and then you don't know why. All right, so next I'm just going to pop that opacity back up, and there you go. Another way to do this, which is the way that I first learned how to do it, and many people think is a lot easier, but if you're kind of like very particular and a bit of a perfectionist, you might not like it. So again, I'm going to use the pen tool, but this time I'm not going to worry or pay attention to the curves. Okay, I'm just going to go through, click, 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 and close the form. Oops, did I close that form? There we go, now I did. Okay, so now I'm going to lower the opacity again so that I can see what the heck I'm doing. And this time I'm going to go to the pen tool right underneath, which is now the curvature tool. I'm going to click that one, and you'll see how I have a little plus sign. That means I can add an anchor, so a new little position or point. All right, I'm going to click and hold and drag, and you can see I can pull out or push in all those little curves that way. And see how like the curve changes based on how I move my mouse? It's pretty cool. All right, again, I'm just going to push up the opacity, and there you go. Now, this bothers some people. You will notice how there's like a little dimple right there. Some people don't like using this tool because of things like that, and some people don't mind. So it depends on what you prefer. All right, that was number 8. Let's go to number 9. Now, remember how I told you that 5 and 9 were different? I'm going to show you how. This one, we just made a text box. So we used the regular type tool, we click and dragged, and there was text in a box, or a text box. This time, we're actually going to make a box and then put text in it. So it's different. All right, here is my shapes tool. You'll notice that it's an ellipse because that's the last shape I used. I'm going to right click and get a rectangle. I'm going to click, hold, and drag, and I have a rectangle. All right, now I'm going to put text in that shape using the area type tool. So I'm going to go over here to where my type tools are. Because it's still set to type on a path, I want to right click so that I can see more options. And I'm going to click the area type tool. Okay, now remember, when you guys are opening up Illustrator for the first time, you might only have 3 options, and area type tool might not be one of them. If that's the case, whoops, okay. If that's the case, you guys need to go up to Window. Remember, you're going to go into Toolbars. Mine's different, so don't trust this right now. Toolbars, and then there will be an Advanced Options. You guys are going to click that one, and then that'll let you see all the different options. Okay, so next I'm going to click the Area Type tool. It kind of looks like a Superman logo, but with a T. All right, and you'll see that my icon is different. Now I have a circle with like a little arrow pointer thing and a text thing. All I'm going to do is click on this anchor, and there you go. It filled everything with text. Pretty cool. All right, now let's do something a little bit more fancy. Instead of just a rectangle, because I want to show you this with a cooler example, I'm going to make the text like really small so that it, makes a bigger impact. And instead of that, I'm going to do a star. Okay, here's my star, and I'm going to go back to that area type tool. Notice how it's in the front now because that's the last thing I use, so I can just click that. But for you, because you might not be there, I'm going to right click and show you where area type tool is. Okay, and then I'm just going to click on an anchor. Doesn't really matter which one. I'm going to click on the top one. And there you go. You can see how it like totally takes the shape of the star, which is pretty nifty. And I'm going to shrink that. Cool. All right, number 10, not as exciting as number 9. Whoops, I'm sorry, that popped over to the other one. With this one, we are just going to change the indents, all right, of a text box. So I'm going to go back to T, go back to my regular type tool, draw a text box, and there you go. I got text in a box. And this time, I'm going to go over to the paragraph setting. All right, again, they have guessed that I might want the paragraph setting, so it came up in my Properties panel. It is also up here, and if it doesn't show up, you can always go to Window, this time Type, and then Paragraph. Okay, so those are other places you can go to get the same thing. I'm going to click on these 3 little dots, and notice when I hover over them, it says More Options. I'm going to click. And right here, we got the justifications, and we got the centers. And here, I have left indent, right indent, and indent just one line. So what I can do here is hit the arrows up, and you'll see how my indentation moves in. Fun fact, I can also push it past the line if I go into the negative, which is kind of cool. Or I can even type in the specific indentation I want. Okay, so because 3 doesn't look like anything, I think I'm going to do like 12. That was the type. Whoopsies. Here, I'm going to do 12. Cool. And then again, to the right indent, 12. Notice how that closed on me and I had to go back into it. That might happen for you. So you might have to go back into there and then open it again. If you don't like that it's doing that, you can click up here and it'll bring down this little menu for you. Okay, or you can, like I said before, always go to Window, oops, and do it that way. All right, the next thing that it wants us to do is take this text and lower it to a 20% transparency and change the color to red. Okay, so I'm going to go over here to opacity, and because I have it selected, I'm going to lower it down to 20%. And instead of trying to figure out the slider, like where exactly 20% is, I'm just going to type in 20. And you see it's gone down to 20%. Next, I need to turn the text red. And the fill kind of works the same way that your character coloring would work. Some fonts actually allow you to have a fill and a stroke, which is kind of cool. So this one, I'm just going to go to fill, and then I'm going to hit red. And there you go. It's a very faint, hard to see light red. Okay, number 11. You're going to load a brush from the library and draw a 3-letter word. And I think I just did 3-letter word because I could. Okay. What we're gonna do is you're gonna go to the brush tool, and I want you to keep in mind, look at this properties panel right now. See how different it is? Now I'm gonna click on this and I want you to look over that properties panel. Boop, see how it changes? All right, it changes based on what it thinks you might want it to do. Right here is a tiny little icon that says brush. If you go to this drop down, there's a couple basic types of brushes and some of your most recent brushes. All right, since you may not have used any recent brushes, you might not have anything else in here. You might have a lot less. There's also this little stack of books, which is your library. And you can go into this library and pick all different kinds of brushes. Another really cool thing that you can do in Adobe Illustrator is you can make your own brushes, and then you can use brushes that you've also downloaded, all right? User defined. Notice I don't have any in there. You can also download other libraries that could be available online, but I would caution you and make sure you're downloading from a reputable website, because the last thing that you want is to accidentally download a virus. Not fun. For this one, I'm just gonna go into artistic and ink, because that's kind of what that looks like to me. And whoopsie, there's my menu. That is the menu that is gonna pop up when I pick that. And you'll see there's these itty bitty little dashes here. They might be really hard for you to see, but they're vertical dashes and my mouse changes. Okay, see how it changes into 2 arrows instead of a paintbrush? If I grab that, I can drag it down and see even more options, or I can keep it there and there's a little slider bar. All right, so I think I'm gonna pick maybe this brush, and then I'm just gonna start drawing with it. Bob. There you go. That's how you can use a brush. Okay. Now, another thing is some of these brushes have presets as to their weight. Some of them are fatter, some of them are skinnier. This one is a little like lighter in the color. This one's redder in the color, even though I'm using the same dang color. You can also change on some of them the stroke weight. See how I went down to my stroke and I made it a little smaller? Like here, let's do a 1-point stroke. You'll see how tiny it is. Okay, instead of this big fat thing, I made a skinny thing. So that's kind of cool too. Alrighty, I'm gonna go back to the selection and we're gonna go over to number 12. All right, now this one, it takes a bit of steps, okay? So the first thing that they're gonna ask us is to make a gradient. We're gonna apply a blue to red radial gradient running from the top left of my shape down. That's a lot to take in. All right, so the very first thing we can start with is let's make a circle. I'm gonna go over to my shapes. Notice how the star is there because that's the last shape I used. I'm gonna right click, select ellipse, and I'm gonna hit shift so I don't really have to guess where the perfect place is to make a circle. All right, when I have it the way I like it, cool, sounds good. Notice how I have this like really funky edge. I think that's because my stroke is weird. Yeah, see how I had it at like 0.1? It like didn't know what to do. So there you go, just a 1-point stroke. That works. I'm gonna do the fill. Now fill has a couple interesting presets. It has these basic artistic colors, it has some gradients, and it has a little rainbow. And another thing that it has, if you see these 3 right here, there are a couple preset gradients. There's also, I believe this is called a vignette, which, you know, kind of makes everything dark and then you can see everything on the inside. And then there's a couple patterns and these all just kind of come standard. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on one of these gradients. This one makes it black to white or white to black. This one, yellow to orange. And this one is actually pretty cool. It makes it blue to see-through. Okay, and you can tell because if you can see really, really close, there's kind of like a checkered mark, and that's usually computer speak for see-through. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick the black, white, and then I can go to here where it says gradient options. All right, and I get this cool menu. Now, if I don't want to do all those steps, what I could just do instead, let's say I've just got this regular blue circle, okay? I can go up to window, I can go to gradient, and that menu is already there. I don't have to go ahead and select and do weird stuff. All right, because this one's on top, it's going to make the change to that one. if I click this one, that goes on top and it's going to make the change to that one. Okay, so for example, if I have my stroke on top and then I click this gradient, notice what happens to my stroke. Instead of it being a black outline, see how it went like white and then it's silver and then it's black? Okay, it makes that change to whatever is on top. So that's something kind of important to keep in mind. Some people don't notice really subtle changes like that. Right, so I'm going to make sure that my fill is on top. See how it's on top of the other one now? Okay, and then I'm going to click this empty, or not this empty box, but this box with the gradient. So it's assigned to it. But now I want to change the colors. These little sliders right here, these little squares with triangles on the top, these I can use to completely change how the gradient is laid out. I can slide them. I can also click, and I get some colors that pop up. All right, so I know I want it to be red on one end, and then click, and I want it to be blue on the other. Oh my gosh, that's so pretty. That's so much prettier than the example. I think the example looks like that. Yeah. Okay, I can also, notice how if I hover, I get a little plus sign on my mouse. I can also add a whole bunch of points and click, put even more colors in there. Click. Kind of cool, right? All right, if I don't want certain colors that are there, I can actually hold and drag them down. Just drag, click and drag them off of there. So that's kind of neat too. All right, so one of the things it said it wanted us to do in applying a blue to red gradient is a radial gradient. You'll notice that there's two types of gradients. We got linear and radial. So right now mine's on linear because it kind of goes in a line. And another thing we can do with linear is we can change the angle. So if I go in here, you see based on which one I click, it changes the angle, which is kind of neat. For this one, we're going to do radial, and you'll notice that everything comes out from a center radius, thus radial. I can use this one right here to change the aspect ratio and kind of squish that radial, or I can just keep it. All right, so now you're going to notice that the example I have here is a little different than the one I made. Do you guys see how that blue section is over here at the top and then it fades down in a 45-degree angle to red, and here it's just smack dab in the middle? So this is how we change that. Over here on the side is an advanced gradient tool. It does a lot of the same things, but it also gives you a little bit more control. So if I click that, I get this little sight line on my mouse, and I can click and drag, and it's going to give me some, sorry, I just clicked on the circle. I didn't click and drag. Once you click on the circle, it shows you that same gradient change, which I can totally drag and alter in real time. I can also go over here and stretch it. I can go over here to this icon and squish it. I can go to this one over here and again stretch it. I can also rotate it. So if I grab on here, I can rotate the angle that it goes at, I can stretch it and make it go at another angle. At this point, I should be able to just click anywhere on my screen and drag it out to reshape it, and then just kind of move it to where I want it to go. All right, this one might be a little big, so I might shrink that, move it over a little bit, so it looks a little bit more like that example. See, that's closer. Yeah. All right, so there is number 12. Boop. All right, next, let's go over to number 13, drawing using Pathfinder. Over here, when we did this one, I showed you all the different things that Pathfinder can do. For this one, we're still going to use the same setting as minus front or minus back. So we're going to make this derpy Mickey Mouse. Remember, when I tell you guys about sketching, you know, like let's talk about sketching and gesture drawing for just a millisecond. I always tell you guys, go from the most basic shape slowly to the more complex shapes, right? Right. So let's start with that. I'm going to make a circle for this big head part, holding down shift so I get a perfect circle. It's still my gradient. I'm going to go in and change it to just red, and I'm going to take out the stroke so I don't have a border. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to go ahead, just move that over so I don't have to make another circle, and I'm going to scale it down Again, I'm holding down Shift so that it keeps the proportions at a circle. If I don't, it's going to be some kind of oval. All right? And again, hold down Alt, drag it over so it makes a copy. So now I have 1, 2, 3 circles, and they all move independently of one another. All right? I am going to rubber band select, so click and drag all 3 together at the same time. And I'm going to use Pathfinder to unite them all into one shape. Click. Now you can see, whoopsie, that they all move as one shape, and I can't separate them anymore. Okay? I'm going to lower down the opacity so I can see what I'm doing behind this shape, and let's go ahead and make these different features. Again, a circle, holding down Shift to make a perfect little circle. V on my hotkey, and Alt so I can just move it over. Oopsie, I was holding Shift instead of Alt. My bad. There you go. Let's see, using the pen tool to get this weird little curvy majigger. Yoink. Nice. And then again, I could just copy this over and I could just rotate it, or I could click on it, right click, go to Transform, Reflect, Vertical, and make a copy, and then move it over. Kind of cool. Or an easier way, I could click this, I could go to, shoot, I already forgot which one it was in. Give me a second. Now I'm determined to figure it out. Haha. Okay, here it is. Right here in the rotate tool, if I right click, I get a reflect tool. So I can click that, place this little sight line where I want it to reflect, hold down Option, and just drag it over. There you go. Now I'm going to hit V so that I can just move it over to the side. Pretty nice. Okay, next, I'm going to go back to the pen tool. I'm so sorry if I'm going too fast in this section, by the way. I just realized. I'm going to click, hold, and drag for this little smiley face part. Yep, that looks pretty good. Release. I can't see anything, so I'm going to go down here. Click and drag. Click back on it to get a straight line. Click and drag. There's my nice derpy mouth. And I'm going to move the opacity back up. Okay. Let's move the opacity back up on everything. V, 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 V. V, go back to V. It's not going to do it. Okay, I just have to select it then. This one I'm going to move back up. All right, and I'm going to select them all. It looks creepy. So now, important thing to remember is the thing that I made last is the thing that is going to be the most on top. In order to minus the front, I have to make sure I know what's in front of what. Or I might need to, minus the back depending on what it is. So in my layers panel, I can see here's my Mickey Mouse shape right there. And then here's all the other shapes that I made, and they are indeed on top of that one Mickey Mouse shape. So I can totally use the minus front because they are in front of. Think of on top is the same as in front. Okay, I'm gonna click that, and there you go. Okay, we can also see through him, which is pretty cool. And yeah, that is number 13. All right, number 14. This one I haven't shown you guys yet. So if you're watching this video on my channel, here you go. What am I doing? Okay, we're gonna make a pattern. Okay, we are gonna draw a diamond shape, copy and repeat it across 4 times and 6 times down. I'm just gonna make a pattern, just enough of a swatch for us to make a pattern. All right, so the most basic part of this, right? It's a square. So let's go over here to our shape tool, right click, I'm gonna do the rectangle tool, and in order to get a perfect square, I'm just gonna hold down Shift. Okay, and make a little square. And then if I hover over on the corner of this square, you can see I get like a little curve with 2 arrows on the end. That is my rotate. And fun fact, if I hold down Shift, it'll snap to 45, 90, or 180 degrees. So that's a really nice thing. I'm gonna hit V, so I can just move that, and then I'm just gonna scale it a little bit, holding Shift so that it keeps the proportions the same as I scale it, okay? All right, so there is that, and I'm gonna use this as a little guide. Next, I'm gonna hold down Alt, So I can just copy it, and I'm also going to hold down Shift so that it moves in a very perfectly straight line down. Okay, nice. Now, if I don't want to have to go like Alt, Shift, and drag, Alt, Shift, and drag, Alt, Shift, and drag all the way down, there's actually a shortcut to do it. If you hit, on a Mac, Command D, and on a Windows computer, Control D, this is what happens. I'm going to hold down Control D. D, D, D. There you go. So I'm holding down Control, and then I'm just clicking D, D, D each time I want the next box to move. Basically, what that does is it takes whatever you just moved and moves it again, moves a copy of it again, the exact same amount of space. So now I'm going to do that with this line. I'm going to take this whole line, rubber band select it, hold down Alt, click. What did I just do? Zoom in. Okay, let's try that again. I'm going to select this whole line, hold down Alt, click it, and then hold down Shift, and then drag it over so it perfectly goes over. Cool. Release when I like where it is, and then I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to click D. And one more time, D. There you go. That is a way to not take so much time. I could imagine a couple people like making every single little square and then putting every single little square in place. And granted, it's not perfect, but who cares? Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is it says to make this a pattern. Okay. So I have this swatch now, and I want to make it a pattern. Let's go to Window. Everything we always want is always in Window, right? And we're going to go to Pattern Options. And I get this. Never mind, I don't want that. I don't remember everything. All right. Where I want to go is, I want my swatches. Where are my swatches? Window, swatches. I want swatches. I was wrong about pattern. I want swatches. Okay, so we get these color swatches. And you know how I told you earlier that there's a couple gradients hiding in here? And there's also a couple of patterns? Remember how I said that? Yeah. All right, so we can actually make our own patterns that we can use later. If we select all of these, rubber band select them, just drag them in here. Notice how I have a tiny little blue line right there, and it has like a little green plus sign saying that I want to add this in. I can release it, and now I have that pattern in there. Do you see it? That red itty bitty little thing? Okay, so now let me show you how I can use that. I'm going to make a rectangle. La la la. Cool. And I'm going to fill it with that pattern I just made. Ba-bam! I'm embarrassing. But yeah, see? Cool, right? Yay! Okay. Whoa, girl. Whoa, Bessie. Oh, calm down. I'm on the wrong screen. I'm trying to move stuff on the wrong screen. I'm such a dorcas. Okay. So there you go. That's a pattern. Fun fact about patterns, you can also paint with a pattern. Yeah. So if I use the paintbrush and I pick a stroke that's fat enough, and there's my fill, okay, I'm going to take off my stroke. Actually, I think I might want my stroke. Yeah. I want my stroke, and I don't want to fill. Yeah. Ah! Erase everything I just said. All right, but anyways, paintbrush, fill and stroke is set, and I can just go like this, and it's a black line. Okay, that's annoying. Here, let's try it again. There you go. It depends on which brush you use, by the way. I should have said that. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of nifty. Next one, number 15, how to convert strokes. All right, so strokes are just lines, right? And in most cases, there are like outermost line. What we're going to do is draw one thick line, copy it, make the end rounded. See how this one's flat and this one's round? And then we're going to convert the line to a shape, and give it a stroke and a fill of a different color. Okay, so right here is my line segment tool. I'm going to click there, and then I'm just going to draw from the top to the bottom. Again, if we hold down Shift, it'll keep it at a perfect 90 degrees, even if I mess up. So it'll keep it 90 degrees, 45, or 180 or yeah, 90. Yeah, you get it. You get it. You get it, right? You get it. I think I said the correct numbers. I'm going to hold down Shift, and you'll see it still has my stroke pattern on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and make it black. And then I'm going to make it real thick, because right now it's not that thick. So I'm going to go over here to where it says stroke, and just make it nice and fat. There we go. Now I'm just going to copy it over, hitting V to use my hotkey for the arrow. I'm going to hold down Alt, click, and just drag it over. And I'm going to hold down Shift just because I can, because that'll line it up all perfect. Okay, and now how the heck do I make a rounded cap? I could be weird, I could take up way too much time, and I could do a circle that's like really tiny and put it on top and then merge them together with Pathfinder, but that's too much effort. That's just a lot of work. So instead, if I go to stroke, you'll notice how the word stroke is underlined. Well, that means I actually have more options in there that I can use. So I'm going to click that, and you'll see that here on cap, I have a flat, rounded, and a projecting cap that I can use. So I'm just going to click on this rounded cap, and there you go. Quite nice. Okay, I'm again just going to copy this over, holding down Alt, maybe Shift just to keep it in line. And this one I'm going to make a little fatter. And then I'm going to copy this one over again, put it on top of it, and make this one, I don't know, green. Why is it not doing anything? Why is it not doing anything? Why can't you see it? What am I doing wrong? Okay, this one, I want you to be green. There you go. Okay, and then I want to put you on top of that one. Okay, it's hiding behind the other one. That's okay. Bring to front. Yeah. Okay, so how I did that is I made sure I had, see how I had just moved it over, so I knew that was the one I had selected and I didn't accidentally select the other one. Then I right-clicked on it, I went to Arrange, and I went to Bring to Front. And there you go. Yep, there you go. Woohoo! Okay, number 15's done. You guys are going to put your name in here. Make a little text box. Name. Wow, that's really tiny. Maybe one that's bigger. And which class period you're in. Again, that's a little too tiny. I can't read that. And then make sure that you turn in this project based on the requirements in the project. So remember, always file and save. Save. You should probably periodically do that while you're working on this stuff. Okay, so we're going to hit save. Yay! And since you already named it, first name, last name, Illustrator Practice, it should already be named that. And then you can just attach that file to the assignment. I hope that this helped you guys. Look forward to the next week and us working on the rest of this stuff. I should send out a video for that maybe around Wednesday, just so that you guys don't use all weekend and then next week is pointless. I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. I hope you're safe. I hope you're healthy. I hope you have a good time. Wear a mask, social distance, don't touch people, and you can wash your hands. Wash them. Okay, bye.